Hello students, I am Dr. Rajnikar. Again I am here with my subject Gender, School and Society. And today my topic is from Unit 2 and the topic is Paradigm Shift from Women Studies to Gender Studies. When we talk about the paradigms of women education and gender education, that is to be divided into three periods. During Vedic period, during medieval period and during modern period. What were the paradigms? So, during the ancient period, if we talk about the paradigm of female education or the women education, the creator of Vedas and mantras are received from the learned women Gargi, Maitri, Apala, Vishwara, Sumedha, etc. Like boys, girls also studied in Gurukul and co-education system was prevalent during that period. Gender education was imparted practically through ancient scriptures, policy texts and epics. Practical education was emphasized for inculcating the values into the learners. Gender education imparted through the character of Adarsh and Purushottam Ram and the character of Sita like Satis like Sita, in which the qualities and responsibilities of women and men were taught. Gender education was provided by a senior member of the family. Initially, there was no discrimination between men and women, but gradually it started happening. There was no prevalence of child marriage, but due to the various social evils which were coming during that period and prevailing into the society, also responsible for the bad condition of women. And they were also free to live the life of brahmacharini while remaining unmarried, because they were also got equal opportunity to get education as the men's has. Now we move on to the medieval period. This period is also known as Muslim period. In this period, the superiority of men was established. Women's were considered to be the object of enjoyment and luxury. That shows the pathetic conditions of women. Women education also was not properly managed. There was discrimination related to women, and social evils were at their peak during the medieval period. There was a feeling of insecurity among women. Gender education was one-sided, in which women were taught to discharge duties towards men, but not men were taught the same thing. Men had more freedom as compared to the women. They are free to choose their life partner. They are free to take education of their choice. They are free to opt for any career they want, but that was not same for the women. They were just live their life on the mercy of men's, in the form of father, in the form of brother, in the form of husband, and so on. They just become the shadow of men. There was no co-education, and now we move on to the modern period. So, what kind of paradigms we have found during the modern period? This was the period who laid a lot of emphasis on women education. Formal gender education was arranged. Equality was included in the curriculum. Co-education was practiced during the modern period. We can also call this period as the period after independence and also some characteristics during the British period, incorporated into the modern period. Co-education was practiced and the participation of public was ensured in the expansion of gender education to ensure female education and reduce gender discrimination. Awareness of change of women education and gender education by means of mass communication. Instead of the ancient norms of women education, new models were established according to the changed circumstances. Emphasis was laid on women-oriented courses and professional skills, so the women become self-dependent and their financial or economic conditions will also improve in the society. For the promotion of women education, correspondence courses, distance education, adult education, etc. were launched. Mahila Samakhya, Kasturba Gandhi Vidyalaya and Operation Blackboard were launched during this period. Provision was also made to give reservations to women to reduce gender discrimination. As we have talked about the paradigms of women education and gender education, so it is also very essential that we need to know about the women's studies. Women's studies grew out of the women's movement in the 1970s when various educationists and scholars began to address the sexism in conferences, seminars, forums, etc. Historian Mary Beard wrote a book, Women as a Force in History, where she talked about the status of women in the past. Simone de Beauvoir wrote about the women and she wrote a book named The Second Sex, in which book she used the word other for the women. That shows the condition of women in the society and how she was treated, and the men's were considered to be important, but the women were not. Betty Friedan also analyzed the situation of the women, and she wrote about them by saying or by calling it as the problem that has no name. UN has sponsored 4 international conferences as a part of its Decade for Women, and these conferences were also held in Mexico City in 1975, in Copenhagen in 1980, and Nairobi in 1985, and in Beijing in 1995. These all were specifically held all over the world just to take up the various issues and the problem related to the women's and women education. Now, what the gender studies are. Gender studies seek to advance understanding of the meaning and role of gender in social life. They need to look at the gender against any backdrop of cultural, political, historical, and social institutions, and in relation to other influences such as class, caste, race, sexuality, and nationality too. University of Southern Indiana explores the fascinating and complex connection between sex, gender, human sexuality, and sexual orientation across multiple disciplines including history, economics, sociology, English, philosophy, social work, management, and psychology, etc., as it is interdisciplinary. As we all know that gender is the interdisciplinary concept which we studied about the gender in different subjects. So I hope this lecture helps you to understand about the gender studies and the women studies too, as well as what are the various paradigms that during different historical periods and as well as in the medieval and the modern period. Thank you.